This girl loved her parents, but a dark spell has turned them into monsters. After a year of hard work, the girl eventually finds a cure, but the result leaves her in shock. This is the beautiful kingdom of Lumbria. It's full of both magical creatures and deadly monsters. It is ruled by an honest king and his gorgeous queen. Their only child is a teenage girl named Elian, who loves riding flying animals with her friends. However, for the past few months, Elian is behaving strangely and spends most of the time in the palace. Her friends want to join her 15th birthday party like they do every year, but Elian refuses immediately. She believes that she's too old for a birthday party. However, the actual reason is something no one in the kingdom can ever imagine. As soon as Elian enters the palace, the royal ministers Nazara and Bolinar ask her to meet the king and queen. Elian's life may look ideal from afar, but only she knows the struggles she has been going through. You may have seen strict parents, but Elian's parents are literally monsters. It all happened almost a year ago when the king and queen were affected by a dark spell. The deadly magic turned them into monsters with no language or memory of their past lives. They don't even recognize their beloved daughter and behave like wild animals. Elian has been looking for a way to break the spell, but nothing seems to work. Until her parents are cured, Elian decides to keep everything a secret from the kingdom. She has even removed all the servants except for the 2 loyal ministers. They help Elian in taking care of the monsters and looking after the royal matters like signing documents, inspecting troops, making laws, and a lot more. It's not an easy job for a little teenager, but Elian has become a strong and mature girl who will not give up so easily. She knows that no matter how wild the monsters look, they are still her parents. But sometimes she gets tired and wishes to have her parents handle everything while she can play freely with her friends. It's been a year, and now everyone in the kingdom is getting suspicious, especially the army general, Cardona. She arrives at the palace door every other day and requests to meet the king, but the ministers send her with random excuses. Cardona is very strict about laws and the safety of the kingdom. If she ever finds out about the monsters, she's going to send them to the forest right away. Elian knows that it can't go on like this forever and wishes to find a cure as soon as possible. Suddenly, the royal postmaster arrives to update Elian about her message to the oracles of Sun and Moon. The oracles live in the dark forest of eternal darkness, which is the most treacherous place, so the postmaster sent 8 birds to ensure safe delivery. 7 of them ate enchanted berries and turned into stones, while the last one finally succeeded in coming back alive. He brought a little scroll that reads, "Add water." Before Elian can bring water, her pet Flink swallows the scroll. Luckily, the magic still works, and the saliva activates the message. 2 shadows appear before Elian and introduce themselves as the oracles of Sun and Moon. They have read her letter and want to observe the issue by themselves. Therefore, the oracles will visit the palace very soon. Elian gets really excited to hear that because the oracles are known to have all the solutions. Soon her parents will be normal again and she can return to her carefree teenage life. Meanwhile, the ministers are done with their miserable lives and wish to have a new leader. As the king and queen were loved by everyone, so it will not be easy to replace them. Suddenly, Nazara gets a brilliant idea. Elian is turning 15, and she is also loved by the kingdom. Nazara plans to send the animals to a safe place where they can live freely, and afterward, he will announce the death of the king and queen. Once the kingdom accepts that, Elian will take over the throne. In this way, no one will suspect this matter, and finally everything will get back in order. But there's one tiny issue. Elian will not agree to that. Coincidentally, Elian hears everything, and she has one condition. They have to try the oracles before she becomes the queen. The ministers immediately agree and start preparing for her 15th birthday. Elian dresses up really nicely and celebrates her birthday with the ministers and her monster parents. Suddenly, a giant frog stops at the palace and drops the oracles of Sun and Moon. They thought that Elian's parents were just behaving wild and not literally monsters. After observing the issue closely, the oracles reveal that the king and queen must have entered the dark forest of eternal darkness, which is the only place where such magic exists. If the spell is not reversed in time, the king and queen will remain like this forever. Luckily, the oracles are willing to help and pull out their fob, which is an upgraded version of magic wands. They press a button to play some music while they explain the solution through a song. Unfortunately, as soon as they start singing, the monsters get triggered, and the queen swallows the oracles. Elian gets really angry and rescues the oracles, but they don't want to stay here any longer. Poor Elian keeps apologizing, but the oracles don't listen and leave the palace forever. The princess gets really angry and scolds the monsters, but they don't seem to understand what they just did. Their last chance of turning into humans is gone. Elian asks the ministers to lock up the monsters and make arrangements for the coronation. Later that day, Elian starts apologizing for shouting at the monsters as they have no idea what they are doing. She even brings some cake slices for them and apologizes for being rude. For a moment, Elian still believes that one day the monsters will be able to recognize her, but there's not much hope. She walks through the palace and recalls the life she enjoyed a year ago. Everything was perfect when the king and queen were here. They used to talk for hours and celebrate every little occasion. There were endless summer nights staring at the stars, and during the winter, they sat together beside the fire. Elian clearly remembers each smile and each embrace of her parents. All she wants right now is a way back to the way it was before. Elian gets lost in her imagination and falls asleep on the couch, but the next morning, she wakes up to her biggest fear. She forgot to lock the doors and the monsters have escaped. Elian runs to catch them, but they have already hit the street and gotten noticed by General Cardona. She immediately summons the royal troops and surrounds the monsters from all sides. To save her parents, Elian jumps forward and reveals the whole truth. The ministers reach there too and try to handle the situation. The citizens seem scared, so Elian starts explaining that the monsters are harmless. Unfortunately, the monsters get triggered by the large crowd and accidentally push down Elian. Seeing this, the citizens demand General Cardona to take immediate actions. Elian is ready to take over the throne, but General Cardona wants her to give up on the king and queen. As they can't be cured, the monsters will be sent far away from this kingdom. Moreover, Elian will not be able to see them ever again. No one listens to the poor girl and starts the preparation for sending away the monsters. Elian starts looking for a solution, and suddenly notices something weird in her pet's mouth. It's the oracle's magic fob they accidentally left behind. Elian requests the oracles to come again, but they are still not ready for that. Elian can't give up, and decides to visit the oracles by herself. Seeing her determination, the oracles agree to help, and tell Elian to use the magic fob to reach them. Elian doesn't know much about magic, so she points at the monsters with the fob, and says her wish. Suddenly, the monster cages start running like horses, and join with the carpet to make a carriage for Elian. She immediately takes control of the carriage and lets Flink use the fob to stop the royal troops. General Cardona assumes that the princess is kidnapped by the monsters, and she brings the flying animals to follow the carriage. Minister Bolinar also arrives to help the princess, but he accidentally falls on the magic fob and switches bodies with Flink. Elian doesn't have time to help Bolinar, and uses a shortcut to reach the dark forest of eternal darkness. They land near a giant owl who's sitting on the house where the oracles live. They get really shocked to see Elian and admire her bravery, but she didn't come all the way here for compliments. She has brought the fob and wants the oracles to fix her parents. Unfortunately, the fob is not enough to break the spell, and reaching other sorcerers will not help as well. The only one who can break the spell is the king and queen themselves. Together, they have to go on a quest through the dark forest with no paths. There's just a small light source guiding them and may flicker multiple times. Moreover, the paths go through mountains with unstable cliffs and deserts with unbeatable heat. Elian knows that it's impossible for two senseless monsters to cover this journey. This is the end. She will never be able to meet her parents ever again. The oracles feel really sorry for the princess, but they don't want her to become hopeless. Sometimes when you are stuck in darkness, a single drop of light is enough to point the way out. Elian has to look for that drop of light and keep following it until she reaches her destination. Her parents have become monsters because they have lost their light. They just need a little spark to turn it on. Elian can find that spark at the lake of light on top of the mountain. The only thing that can stop her is the darkness following her everywhere. It feeds on people's dark feelings, so Elian must stay positive and only think about good times. After hearing the explanation, Elian gets a new hope and excitedly follows the light along with her parents and Bolinar. After a while, they reach a dark cave that seems like the only path towards the first milestone. Elian suddenly notices the royal troops and asks everyone to hide, but Bolinar starts calling for help. Luckily, no one notices the tiny creature. Once the troops are gone, Elian gets inside the cave that is full of blue, glowing light bubbles. Whenever someone makes a sound, a new bubble is created. Elian and the monsters really enjoy the bubbles and ask Bolinar to join them, but he's not in a good mood and makes a negative comment. Instead of the soft blue bubbles, the negative comment turns into red, painful rays. Elian understands what's happening and asks everyone to avoid making angry noises. The monsters stay calm for a while, but then the queen accidentally hits the king's face. He gets really angry and starts fighting with the queen. Their angry noises fill up the cave with painful rays which are hurting poor Elian. She gets upset on seeing her parents fighting, and her dark feelings get stronger. A whirlwind of darkness reaches there and starts pulling Elian towards itself. The monsters finally realize what they did and try to help Elian. Their love for the princess creates positive energy and drives away the darkness. The spell is getting weaker and the monsters start talking like humans. They don't remember their past selves yet, but Elian is still happy at the progress. The beacon of light appears again and guides them towards the next milestone. On the way, the monsters keep asking a bunch of questions because they can finally communicate. Moreover, Elian is willing to answer all of their questions because she really missed talking to them. Bolinar is still hopeless and believes that the king and queen are just talking monsters. Elian doesn't agree with him and tries her best to recover her parents' memories. The monsters like the little princess anyway and keep playing with her. After traveling for a few miles, they reach the top of a mountain, but this is not the place they are looking for. Moreover, the beacon of light has disappeared as well. Elian keeps waiting for the light for hours, but it doesn't show up. Eventually, the night sets in, but Elian refuses to give up. While staring at the stars, she asks the monsters if they can remember anything about their past lives. The time when they used to watch stars together and confess their love for each other. Hearing this, the king starts having some flashbacks, but they are not clear. Meanwhile, the queen is struggling to recall anything but doesn't give up. Her determination pays off and she starts calling Elian by her name. The positive energy drives away the darkness and the beacon of light appears once again. Elian excitedly heads towards their next milestone, but she doesn't know that the royal troops are just a few miles away. Moreover, Bolinar is leaving behind a trail so he can be rescued as soon as possible. Elian gets really angry at him and forces him to stop thinking about giving up. They are going to the Lake of Light no matter what happens. Bolinar agrees to stop being selfish, but there are more problems Elian needs to deal with. The desert they are traveling through is not an ordinary one. The ground turns into quicksand as soon as it gets away from sunlight. Elian wants to move forward while staying in the sunlight, but there are too many clouds to dodge. Moreover, the royal troops have reached the desert. The queen prefers going through the Greenlands while the king prefers crossing the desert because it's a faster route. Elian wants to agree on one plan, but her parents keep arguing. They also involve the poor girl in their fight and ask her to choose one of them. Elian is experiencing something toxic parents do every day. They don't realize that their personal arguments are affecting their innocent children. Elian gets really upset, and the darkness whirlwind returns. The sunlight disappears completely, and the desert turns into a sea. Elian suddenly notices a family of flying wolves suffering in the storm. The baby wolf is stuck and crying for help. Elian forgets about her own worries and rushes to save the baby. The monsters also give up their conflict and prioritize their daughter's wish. By working together, they succeed in saving the baby and driving away the darkness. The troops are still after them, so the king creates a sandstorm for distraction and hides away with Elian and the queen. The journey continues towards the Lake of Light, but Bolinar starts making negative comments once again. While talking to him, Elian loses her parents and gets worried. Suddenly, the ground shakes and hundreds of flinks jump out of it. They are willing to help, but Bolinar needs to prove that he is a real flink by eating their disgusting snack. Bolinar reluctantly eats the snack, but surprisingly, he likes it a lot. He also starts liking other flinks and agrees to sing and dance with them. The flinks give him a tour of their underground home and also help Elian in finding her parents. Elian also gets to meet more flying wolves' families. Seeing the wolves playing with the babies, the king and queen start recalling their parenthood. Finally, their memory is recovered. Elian gets really happy and runs towards the Lake of Light. She jumps in the water and calls her parents, but the lake doesn't accept the king and queen. While looking at their reflection, the king and queen finally remember how they turned into monsters. They kept arguing with each other and the darkness took over them. The king and queen decide to accept that they aren't compatible anymore and must end their relationship. They try to explain this situation to Elian, but she is not willing to accept. She just wants to go back to the way it was before. Elian believes that her parents are being selfish and they are not thinking about her. She suffered from hundreds of lonely days and sleepless nights, but ended up seeing her parents getting separated. Elian gets full of negative emotions, and the darkness surrounds her. Before the monsters can help her, they get caught by the royal troops, and their mouths are tied up as well. Luckily, Bolinar is still free. He teams up with other Flinks and unlocks the monsters. After knowing that they are the king and queen, the troops immediately surrender. They all rush to save Elian, but she is not listening to anybody. The king gets an idea and tries to pour the lake water on Elian. The queen helps him too, and seeing them working together, Elian is feeling better. Her parents want to apologize for not considering her feelings. They were so lost in arguments that they forgot about the stress Elian was facing. Elian accepts the apology because she knows that nothing can change the fact that she's their daughter. The spell is finally removed and everything gets back to normal. After returning to the palace, the king and queen officially end their marriage, but Elian can visit them both anytime she wants. Despite starting their new separate lives, the king and queen still work together to give Elian all the happiness she deserves.